I'm here.
Hey, would you open or Facebook and see if it's posted? I know it's good on Instagram finally. Goodness gracious, this has been a
It's on the
learning
long the page is Long Range Tactics podcast, right?
straight jacket army.
Oh, on Straight Jacket. Okay, let me look that
Mm.
up. I don't I don't see it.
Hmm. Yeah, it's there.
The last thing that I see 1 hour ago from Zelensky
That's what
for
I
the
see too.
Yeah, it says it's live, but I don't know. It's live on Instagram, so we're just gonna let it.
We can share it.
Maybe I don't know what's going on. It won't let me click on go live for some reason.
Oh, it's definitely live on Instagram. I'm looking right at it.
You,
Oh,
you pretty face.
look at that. I see all three of us.
Sexy. Yeah, I don't know why it won't let me click go live.
I went and grabbed a hat so I wasn't out of place. I didn't
It's
I
funny. None of us have a straight jacket hat though.
Yeah,
No, I was actually going to ask about that.
it
Everybody does.
started.
Sore
Don't
subject.
started.
Oh, is it? Is it a
No,
sore subject? Because I'll push those buttons.
no, it's fine.
The marketing guy doesn't have swag?
No,
Oh, okay. Oh, uh, let me just.
kiss my ass.
Ooh,
Oh, I just have to throw branding things.
hitting them where it hurts now.
Hmm.
You're not even nice right
Oh,
now.
no.
All
But I
right.
do appreciate good packaging and branding. It's just
Yeah,
something.
whatever. I
Okay.
wonder, Nick, have you looked at YouTube to make sure it's on live over there too?
I have not. Let's check
Be
real
careful when
quick.
you open it because we'll all hear whatever you're looking at. I know what you've been watching on YouTube, so
You have no idea what I've been watching on
I
YouTube.
don't. I don't want to know. That's
It's
the whole.
way
YouTube
worse.
only
It's
lets you get
way
in
worse
so
than you
much trouble.
think.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with this stupid thing. I've got to figure all this new stuff out because it won't let me click on go live.
Yeah, we're live on YouTube.
Yeah, oh we are. Okay, I'll just share it later. That's fine. All right. So we wanted to talk about now. I know that there's a bunch of you on Instagram watching. We appreciate you, and hopefully we can get some people on YouTube. But if you have questions, I'm trying to watch. There you go. I just commented. So we wanted to talk real quick about starting a build. Now we get asked all the question all the time. Oh, do you have a Remington 700 that we can start a build with? You know, and we've kind of beat the dead horse, but we wanted to talk about the starting of the bottom of the pyramid, I guess you'd say, and the base to everything, and that's the action, right? And we wanted, and I wanted Matt to have his input here. He is a sponsored shooter, so we've got to have him be a little bit biased about who sponsors him as an action builder. But yeah, whatever. But
The
um,
branding thing.
yeah, we want to talk about
We don't use those here.
Oh, I
We
yeah,
see
don't.
that.
We don't use those here.
Yeah, not at all.
TDI Ranch says Tika, 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 Tika. Oh boy, here we go. See, we're already going down the rabbit
Hey,
hole.
Tikas are fantastic though.
They are, but they've gotten super expensive to freaking up. Like
Sure.
we were talking
Yeah.
about that today, Nick. You were looking for just teak actions. Now, if you have the rifle already, that's one thing. But I've heard a lot of people lately like, "Hey, I'm going to start a build and I want to find a teak action to start with." So you got to buy the whole rifle
I wouldn't
to
do that.
tear it apart. What are you going to do, Matt?
Well, I just wouldn't. So, I mean, so when shooters come to me and they want my opinion of like a factory rifle to start with, and not necessarily Ribeiro right out of the gate, I will oftentimes push in the Tikas because they have that possibility. And two, like there's aftermarket parts for them, pretty accessible, and they're pretty robust action, and they all seem to shoot really well. Some of the ones I've seen. So, to me, like I'm going to tell them where they're like there's the safest to spend dollars, and that's one of them.
Yeah, yeah. What do you? We talked about this, Nick. What do you? Let's go down the rabbit hole, buddy.
Well, if are we talking to Nick 8 years ago or Nick today? Right. 8 years ago, we constantly built Tikas for people. I could go on Optics Planet, for example, and I could buy Tikas when they went on sale for $399. And we would buy, 10, 15 of them at a time and just have them here for people. The problem is now, like, there are people out there selling actions and they're right around $899 for the action. And when you can buy a coup de grace for $899, it is really hard for me as a builder to suggest to a customer to buy a Tika. And Tikas are great. I'm not trying to bash on them. I built hundreds and hundreds of them, but I've also broke a lot of bolt stops.
Yeah.
I've broke firing pins, and if you have to order a part like a firing pin assembly from Beretta's website, you're looking at 9 months and $160 to replace that pin. Cole, I think you were at the match when Dan Spurgeon broke his bolt stop and took his bolt in the mouth.
Ugh.
Yeah, like that's just that little tiny pin. We're kind of rough on things these days. We don't run guns like we did 20 years ago, where we just take them out, make sure we can hit a pie plate at 100 yards, and hey, we're good to go. Let's go hunting. I mean, people shoot all the time now. They're wearing parts out constantly. Extractors get broke, ejectors get broke. I'm sure, Matt, you've broke bolt stops and stuff like that. It's like,
Yes.
I'm always trying to think, like, what am I selling this guy down the road, not what am I selling him today?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Hey, Nick, while you're at it, would you share the live video from YouTube to Facebook? That'll get everybody over there. I can't find it. I just looked. But going down that road, so, let's say, let's put it in this perspective. Okay. I'm going to build a Remington 700. Number one, it's got to probably be upgraded on the bolt stop. People want to do that. Now, you don't have to. A lot of people, though, like on mine, I'll put a different extractor in it because I don't trust the extraction system in a 700.
So you're talking about just factory 700 action.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Because we get asked so much about it. Hey, do you have a 700? I want to start a cheap build. Well, number one, the cheap build doesn't start as a 700. Sorry, it doesn't. Not with the actions that we have today at the prices that we have today. So you've got to, yeah, right. Sorry, guys, didn't want to get this started. It's fine, dude. We're good. That's why we're here. So I want to talk about it. But there's a lot of people that have these questions. So you go down that path of all the additions, the truing, the extraction, all the different things that you want to upgrade on a 700. By the time you're done with that, and somebody's gone through it, you're, depending on if you bought a rifle and you tore it apart for the action or whatever you did, you're probably $700 into it, I would imagine. 6, 7.
So I have a 700 action, because if you actually look at what a 700 action is, right, it's a tube, and the bolt is pretty simple in itself. The firing pin mechanism, striker assembly, is pretty simple itself because they're made to be mass produced and cheap. And yeah, I have one with a different extractor, a little bit better upgraded, bigger ejector. It's got the welded bolt handle. It's been fluted. Everything's been trued. The firing pin has been bushed. That's another one that needs to be done, in my opinion. The large firing pins are no longer acceptable for small firing pin use, so you have to have that done as well. And so yeah, you're right. It all adds up like crazy fast to where you're already at or above what a nice new custom action is.
Yeah, and it makes zero sense. I mean, then we've ran custom actions. You've got the let's say the coup de grace now. It's an $899 action, and me and Nick were playing with one yesterday, and we're like, holy shit, for $899, this action cock on claw, everything is just so smooth about it. To make a 700 smooth, you've got to do that. Now, same thing with Tika. Tika, there's guys out there building the Tikas. I think if you already have the rifle and you're upgrading it or doing whatever you're going to do, I think that's a smart idea. But if you're trying to go out there and just find a Tika action, I don't know if that's the case. I mean, you've got the new Solace now. Me and Nick have been talking about the Solace. I think like somebody had them the other day for like, we were like, we're not even going to offer them anymore because they're so freaking cheap. But somebody was offering a Solace the other day for like $680 or something. It's got a 60-degree bolt, full integral rail, integral recoil lug, pre-fit capable, and it's like, man, with stuff like that available, why would you even think about a 700 at that point or trying to take something up? But we all know that those cheaper actions don't ever run like the more expensive actions do. They just don't.
Well,
They're not the same
no,
level.
they don't. And to me, when I see 3-lug, I automatically kind of.
Oh, somebody just got hurt. I could hear it on Instagram right now.
I'm
Somebody
sorry. I
Hang on,
don't.
I'm getting a text message, you guys.
somebody got hurt
Sorry.
somewhere. The
I-
Phil
And
pass
hey,
got
the coup de grace, going back to that, the coup de grace is a 3-lug. And, and one of the reasons these are so cheap, and I don't want to say cheap, that's the wrong word. Before
inexpensive.
and before I go any further, I think when you talk to people online, especially if you're on the forums or social media, you say like, hey, I want to build off a Tikka. They kind of take it the wrong way. They like, oh, you guys are just snobs or whatever. Not everybody's rich and stuff like that. And that's what's so great about all this now. I mean, when we first started all this, I remember me and my son saying, well, why don't people build their own bolt action rifles? Like everybody builds their own AR-15. There's, a bolt gun's so much simpler in terms of if you were to buy a barreled action and a chassis and a trigger, and you just got to put all this little stuff together. Holy smokes, you really can't mess up. It's made it so that you can buy a barreled action, save up for a few months, buy the chassis you want, save up for a few months, buy the scope you want.
100%.
It has nothing to do with shaming because I mean, we've all been there. We've all built that Remington 700, and some of them worked out, and some of them, like mine, galled up after 600 rounds, and I just literally flushed $3,500 down the toilet that I'll never get back. I mean, back then, Defiance and Kelby's were pretty much the only things out there, but I would have only had to spend an extra $400 to go that route, and I would have had something really solid that I would still be shooting today, 15 years later. And instead, that rifle got cut, bandsawed in half and thrown in the garbage out of the recycling. But they're getting their costs down largely by, if you look at the way they're making these bolts now, the arrow is the same way. The raceway is actually cut into the side of the bolt right here above my fingernails. So there's no EDM work to be done inside these actions anymore. That's about 5 hours of labor that's being subtracted from the manufacturing process. And some action manufacturers did a very good job of getting rid of that raceway, and some didn't. I'm not going to mention any names, but there's some of them that don't have a raceway that are, I mean, I guess if you've only ever felt a Savage, you're going to be really happy with. But if you've felt anything else, you're probably not going to like it. ARC with their coup de grace did a fantastic job of getting rid of that raceway, just like Cadex did with their Shadow 40 actions.
I just don't ask the Ted for an interview.
No.
Oh, I love Ted to death, but son of a bitch, that guy. Holy hell. I love Teddy though. Ted, like he's so freaking smart. It's not even funny.
Yeah.
And
that's
like
the blessing and the curse.
But the
Yeah,
problem is like we would sit there and my brain, like you can see shit coming out of my ears when I talk to him, like it's cooking because my brain's fried. Yeah, it's been one of those wild rides. Somebody just asked us on Instagram about the LW7, dude. Solid freaking action, solid action. And I just saw on their thing the other day, they just came out with an LW7 with integral rail. Integral 2-piece rail, so it's not a full piece rail, but dude, full 1-piece rails. Let's talk about that real quick. So we've had this discussion 100 million times about 1-piece rails versus pinned and screwed on rails, right? The pinned and screwed on rails, Tate, if anybody knows Tate Streeter, he's always like, there's always two things. He goes, there's the rails that have come loose and the rails that will come loose. He always says that. And it can happen if you're not doing it right. Now, I've had some of my actions that I've had for years that they haven't. We Loctited the ever living piss out of them and they're okay. And some of them haven't. But a lot of people now just want, I think, that peace of mind when the action nothing can come loose on the action itself. Then you can get into if your rings come loose or your scope comes loose or your scope's not tracking. There's so many more variables there, but going back to the base of this whole triangle we're trying to build at the action now. We've talked about
cost. You're definitely going to pay more for these integrations because they do have to start out with a larger piece of stock it does equal more machine work. Uh, I guess if you look at the Bighorn Origin versus the TL3, we get asked that a lot. Should I just go ahead and get the TL3? Well, to me, no. I don't think that buying an integrated recoil lug necessarily is worth an extra $340 because they both have detachable rails. I'd rather have this be solid. I don't care about the recoil lug.
Hey,
I've never
put
seen
that
a
away
recoil lug
before
jump
somebody
off.
sees it.
This?
Yeah. Oh, I thought I was looking at it. You're small on my screen. I thought it was that freaking 787. I'm like, somebody's gonna call
I'm
me.
kind of small anyway. You know, like,
I'm like, don't tell nobody the frickin' 787s. We've only got a couple of them, and they're already gone. So don't
you
ask.
shouldn't have even said that name.
I
You should-
know. I freaking
So the
screwed
the
myself.
the Origin is a great budget action, and it hits a
It
price
is.
point and a feature list that's great. And the design of that control round feed that'll also do push feed without breaking shit is great
Mhm.
too. I mean, I know a ton of people that have assembled rifles off of those, and they've been fantastic. So that's a great
Well,
budget option.
and what a lot of people don't know about the Origin is, before COVID, the Origin was 4140 chrome vanadium. After COVID, they were unable to source the 4140 steel that they needed to make the Origin. So, kind of the big difference between the TL3 and the Origin was that the TL3 was made out of 416R stainless, which is a more expensive material, and the Origin was made out of 4140. Well, when they weren't able to source that anymore, they raised the price of the Origin slightly to make up for making them out of 416. So now they're even made out of 416R. I would say, looking between the two of them, I don't think I'd ever spend the money on the TL3 now because they're both made out of the same material. Uh, you're really just paying that extra money for the integrated lug. And I think you'd have to talk to some action makers to verify this, but surface grinding a lug and holding tolerance that way is far more accurate than mill turning the face of an action and keeping that perfectly straight all the way through. Because I mean, there is a tolerance, a plus minus something from one end of this
Right.
action to the other. I
Yeah.
think most guys would take especially bench rest shooters. Most bench rest shooters would rather have a two piece lug than having an integral. There's not too many integrals that hold world records, not in bench rest.
Mm. Yeah, and is that because they just haven't ever wanted to change over, or
I think that's probably a lot of it. Old habits die hard with the bench rest crowd. Real
Yeah.
hard. A lot of those guys are still using Crisco to size their brass because
Well,
like
and old. I mean, most of that crowd is like the same age, getting older. So
sure, it's not a growing sport, that's for sure.
no. In fact, my local club in Reno, unfortunately, that discipline died off with the crowd, literally, and it's a sad thing. But hey,
It is. It's
whatever.
a good discipline. It really is. I think F class is a great discipline.
Yeah.
Well, those disciplines need to do a little bit better job of getting new people into it.
Absolutely.
That's a different
Absolutely.
topic. But for most of what people do, as far as competitive shooting or hunting or whatever, that design with the non-integral lug is just fine too. I mean,
Yeah, it's not going to
kids,
hurt you.
no.
If I
No.
was looking to save a few bucks on the action, like maybe versus like, am I going to go Tika or do I want to buy an Impact MBK? I might be thinking, well, heck, I could go to the Origin. They're about the same weight. I mean, they're a few ounces more. If you're that much worried about the weight, take the change out of your pocket. I can take that two-piece lug. That lug's, I mean, I don't know about you guys. I've never seen a lug jump off a rifle and get lost. It's not going to happen. They don't come loose. They're staked. There's just
And
I mean,
they're
your
high
lug comes
quality.
with
They
a
don't
sheer barrel
crack.
as those. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. So Matt, what are your let's say you're going to be building a rifle, and you've got to don't you bring up your sponsorship shit, okay? So if you were putting a rifle together and you had a very minimal budget, of course you'd be calling Straight Jacket, but what are you going to build off of? Like, say you've got a couple $1,000 and you want to start with an action. What are you going to look for, and what are you going to get?
So I don't have anything, right? I got to buy everything.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so for a budget action, there's a couple really good options. So the Bighorn Origin or Zermatt Origin is one that I've always kind of pushed shooters towards because it's pretty easy, it's cheap, it's reliable. But I always kind of preface that with, well, if you can afford this, you can afford a couple $100 more and get like a high end action that's like. But I don't recommend 3 lugs to people. I just don't. I recommend 90 degrees because they're a little bit simpler and like you mentioned with that new arc, they have cock on close instead of cock on open, which I think is a huge design disadvantage to 3 lugs with the cock on open because that bolt resistance is usually pretty heavy, and you don't really get that with 2 lug 90-degree actions. So something like that with a 2 lug 90-degree, the trigger hanger versus non-trigger hanger, I could care less about. I think they work the same with pins or without pins. So something simple. I've even seen some Mac Brothers actions that actually run really well. I've never built one off that, but I don't see any issues with them. So for as far as a budget approach, but I also came from the land of Howa, which were a metric. So I had Howas that were cheap, or you could buy a barreled action cheap and either rebarrel it, but it's a metric thread, so you got to find a gunsmith that'll do metric thread. And those are overbuilt from the factory. They're flat bottom, so that's a good factory option to build off of as well, as long as you got someone that can do it. And from what I know, is their tolerances are pretty tight, and the bolts are forged one piece. The receivers are machined and they're pretty good. So there's 2 kind of avenues there for $1,000 or less, and then a barrel, a decent cut rifle barrel that's actually not a barrel nut prefit.
Oh, I
I've
hate
played with
those.
that. I've played with it. They can work, but not optimal. And getting the headspace correct is actually a little harder than people think. But that's the way I'm going. Is there are still options for $1,000 or less that you can darn sure make work and get good results in.
To your point, I mean, you look at the difference between, let's say, I'm just going to throw 2 actions out here. Yes, I am wearing an Impact shirt. Love Tate. Love everything he does. I've got a lot of friends that build actions, though. The Falcors, all of them. The thing is I have a lot of actions in my personal inventory, and there's things I absolutely love about some, and there's things that I absolutely hate about some. But if you really think about it, and you can save an extra $300 or $400, that's in some cases that's the difference between Bighorn and an Impact, or a Bighorn and there's not a whole big. It's not like in optics where you've got something on the low end and you got something $2,000 more. Most of these actions are between $800 and, well, depending on frickin' Defiance is bullshit, but up to $1,700 now, $1,800 for the Defiances, which to me, I'm going to say it. You guys can all crucify me later. They're not worth it. But you go into the sevens, the Falcor sevens, the Kelbleys, those. There's not a whole big difference between these, and everybody needs to kind of take that into account. And then, not to mention, how do these companies run their how do they do their warranties? That's another big one. If anything ever breaks, what happens? Nick, what's yours? What are you going to build if you're just going to build something cheap and you're trying to keep it low? Wait, hold on, Matt. Okay, so you did your cheap end. What's your top end?
So aside from sponsorship and affiliation, whatever, so I bought my first Lone Peak action because to me, like, that had everything that I wanted to in a match action, and I actually use that top end for hunting too. I just throw it in something lighter. But it's 90 degree. I can rebuild it myself. It's completely user serviceable. Like, it's really easy. It looked good. Man, it's slick. Oh man, they are slick, which is awesome. It was already AW cut. The firing pin was the right diameter for small rifle stuff, and then I could buy bolts to swap between 223 short mag or standard 473 bolt face. So that was it. So that was, and the way I tell people to look at actions, no matter what the brand is get something that will last you the lifetime, because that's what you're kind of investing in. It's like a lifetime action. It's not just going to wear out on you. So that's what I do. And for matches stuff, I have 3 of these actions, and I rebuild them every year. So they have different barrels on them, and I redo the striker springs and the ejector springs and the extractor springs, and that way I have a fresh action every year. And I can do it all in my garage, the punch set and a armor's block, and away we go. So and I put barrels on these actions every year. So that's the way I would do the high end part.
Something you can pre-fit to, which is most of them nowadays. What's yours,
Yeah.
Nick? What's your low end?
Well, gosh, it's funny because I haven't built myself personally anything in quite a few years, but just advising people on what to build. My first question is always like, what are you going to use the rifle for? Because that's going to have a huge impact on what I recommend. You know,
Right.
I'm not going to recommend the guy that's going out hunting buys an Impact 737
Mhm.
because there's not a lot of difference when it comes to accuracy on the way a barreled action from us is going to shoot from a Zermatt Origin to an Impact. There's just not. The accuracy is really not enough of it's coming from that. But I guess if I was going to go on the short end, it would probably, yeah, I think it would be an Origin, just the flexibility. Most time when people are coming to us and they want that budget friendly build in the beginning, they don't really know what they want. I know that's a weird thing to say, but they think they know what they want until they actually go out there and do it. Kind of like the guy that puts a rifle together and then wants to go start shooting matches. Instantly, he realizes that his medium Palma barrel is not heavy enough, and he has to start changing things and configuring the rifle differently. So I would say, if I was going to build something that was a general plinking / coyote gun, maybe a do-it-all workhorse, something I could throw in the truck and beat on, that Bighorn Origin would definitely be at the top of my list. Maybe a medium Palma barrel. I don't really care if it's cut rifle or button pulled with the way they heat treat barrels these days. For example, I could take a Benchmark and a Bartley and throw them right together as long as they're cut well. On paper, you wouldn't be able to tell me which one was which based on how they shot. So I'd probably just offer a button pull barrel, maybe a Trigger Tech special, throw it in a KRG Bravo chassis. You could probably wrap that whole package up for around $2,100 and have something that shot just as good as, you know, a higher end Impact in a KRG Whiskey 3 with a Bartley barrel, you know, so talking like $2,000 difference. Now, ergonomically, it's not going to be as friendly. It's
Mhm.
not going to weigh as much. It won't be quite as smooth, but it'll definitely get somebody started. And that Zermatt action is going to last forever. We had some that we used for our loaner guns for our long range classes. Some of those had like 16, 17 barrels shot out of them, and there was no black nitride left on them. I mean, they were chrome, baby, but they still seemed like the more we ran them, the smoother they got, the better they felt. And you can swap bolt heads. That's a really nice thing about that Origin is just being able to twist that firing pin out with no tools, punch that bolt head out, and go from a 223 all the way up to a Magnum.
Right. Yeah. What's your high end? What's your favorite action high end?
Oh gosh, you know, I am really torn between the Impact 737 and the Falcor 7.
Mm.
I mean, I get them both side by side, and I don't know which one I like better. I mean, they're both. I love Tate. I love Jason. They're both super good guys. Tate has an awesome machining background. He makes all his parts in house. Jason, again, awesome machining background. Does a lot of government high end stuff that the coatings are fantastic on both. I'd be torn, man. I mean, really, I'd be torn. I don't even know if I can make the decision. Can I have one of each? Does that work? All right.
I do.
I'll take one of each. I'll take one of each. I want a Benchmark BCC barrel. Yeah, hook it up like that.
Yeah. I love, so I have my GT and my little boy's 223 are both done on impacts. And my GT, I haven't cleaned it just because I want people to run it. Yeah, he does like Jason shirtless Instagram pics. I gotta give Jason shit for that too. But I left it filthy after one of my matches, and I just let people go into the safe and fill it. And I'm like, holy crap, that's dirty. That's one of the big things that comes to me for actions. There's not a whole lot of difference in the way, I mean, there is once you start feeling a lot of actions, you can tell the difference. But once they get dirty, they really start telling you what's going to happen. If you shot a match, if you've hunted, if you've done any of those things, dirty actions are huge.
I had a polished Deviant that would absolutely not run if it was the slightest bit dusty. The coated
yeah.
ones would run great, the
Mhm.
nitrided ones, but the polished ones, that was the stickiest action that I've ever had. And then I felt some titanium actions that felt like that too. Not going to dime out brands, but yeah, but one of those actions that's well run in, there's nothing that compares. Like there's a number of actions that'll feel that way, and
Mhm.
it's and when they get dirty, they just don't seem to slow down.
Yeah,
Yeah,
mine
I'll give
will.
an edge to Impact for running dirty, and I'll give an edge to Falcor on the coatings on their bolts.
Mhm.
I think Impact when they're dirty. I've had an Impact 737 on a 6.5 PRC. When I do get a hunt, it's usually late season on a snowmobile. And for you guys that haven't rode, when that track throws up a lot of snow behind you while you're riding, if I have my gun on a sling, which I normally do, fixing a gun to a snowmobile is not the easiest thing in the world. Generally, you have it on your back. All that frozen ice is coming off the track and sticking to your back. When you get ready to take the shot, I actually put my gun up against the footboards on my sled and used my boot to kick that bolt open because the action was just completely cocooned in ice. And I mean, I had to kick the crap out of that action to get it open, but being able to literally put the boots on your action and not worry ever about anything breaking. I mean, that's pretty cool. I've seen bolt handles come off just from stuck cases, you know.
Oh yeah.
And
That's
you
why,
Remingtons
throw
are
it
and that's
horrible.
on.
why, yeah, exactly. That's why I had that 700 welded because they're
Right.
brazed on and they pop right off.
Oh
Yep.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're horrible. You
Yeah, my
never get
buddy told
that
me,
or
like,
you'll
is he
hunt.
really kicking the hell out of his gun over there? I sure am. Shut up.
Yeah. I have my lone peak is on my hunting rifle, my 28 Nosler. Shot a bunch of animals with it, and I love it. I've got impacts, I've got Falcors. I've been spoiled over the years for stuff, and there's definitely stuff. What I want to do is I need to do a video one of these days and just fill them all with dirt and show everybody, how they run with all the different types of dirt.
Just
But
use them. Just use them at your range of Dog Valley. You'll find it real quick.
that moon dust is horrible. I don't want to ruin them.
Exactly. That is
Yeah.
the worst. The
Yeah.
worst to
Well,
shoot
we
in.
could do something like that and use a scale to pull the bolt up and kind of show how much force. Some actions are just bad.
Holy shit! There's a
Some
couple
act-
of these new ones. Woo!
There's a couple of those new ones me and Cole were playing with yesterday, and yeah, I mean, like we're looking for a come along to
Yeah,
get that
there's
thing up.
one of the ones we were going to hit that real quick. What is that other action that you just got that was super? The
The
Kruger?
Kruger action, yeah, I hadn't heard of them. One of our customers sent one in. Let me pull it up on my screen here. It's Kruger Arms.
Kruger? Kruger, Kruger, something like that.
Let me look here.
Cowger?
KAU,
Okay.
Kilo Alpha Uniform Golf Echo Romeo. Uh, it was the. Let me look it up here. We're actually going to start doing prefits for them. I just got the plugs made for them, and I will tell you what, the bolt lift on this action was phenomenal. The only one I could compare it to, and honestly, would be the coup de grace again. The CRS action is what it is. Now, my only complaint on the CRS was the rail. It's two-piece, which I don't mind as long as they're staked. But the rail on that particular action was not staked, and I found that a little odd today that you would only bolt the rails. So my only complaint. However, even after firing it, you could take your pinky and just very gently lift that bolt up without rolling your bipod or anything else. This one's actually pretty good also. As you guys know, like if without these being in a stock, they're pretty tough to get the lift on. So I'll dry fire that. I could actually take my finger and lift this one up also, and just bringing it down and camming it closed is really nice as well. So yeah, there's some new stuff. I'm excited for SHOT Show this year to see if any of this stuff is out there. But our customer went down to that. What is it? That PRS convention in Texas.
PRE, Precision Rifle Expo.
Yeah.
There you go. He went down to that, and he said that he'd seen the actions down there the last 2 years, but they didn't have a gun put together for him to shoot. And he said once he actually got behind it, and this guy owns Impacts and Falcors and everything else. He's like, nah, that's it. I'm buying one. And had it shipped right up. He said once you get behind it, you'll see what I'm talking about. It's excellent. Yeah, you might give those guys a look. I haven't seen a lot of them. We've only barreled up 2 of them. The dimensional consistency is definitely there. They do have a 2-piece lug and a detachable rail, which I know isn't super popular these days, but I was super impressed with how that action felt.
There's definitely a lot of options. You know, a long time ago, we also had to wait a long time for actions, and they've started to slowly roll back out. You know, we just build a few on Lone Peaks. We're actually still building a couple rifles on the Lone Peaks. We're sending a crap ton of the Impacts out. I'm getting Falcors as fast as we can get them. We're trying to keep at Straight Jacket Armory, you know, a bigger selection. The hard part is once you get too big, it's keeping it in stock to where people can get decent lead times and then ordering. You know, Kelbley's has been that way. Kelbley's has kind of been a roller coaster lately as far as in stock, out of stock, you know, where everything is. And they've Defiance kind of, after they did their stuff, you know, it made everybody else super busy and put everybody else behind. And I think it's starting to kind of level out now, but there are quite a few new action companies coming out. There's some AR companies that are claiming that they've got new actions out, and they're really just somebody else's that they put their name on. You know, that's
Typical for the firearms industry.
yeah. Is it really yours? You know, that's another thing we can talk about real quick. How many of these companies actually build their own actions?
Well, okay, so there's a deeper root
It's
of that, right?
small.
And yeah, because there's only so many actual manufacturer things, and that's not just rifle actions, that's pistol stuff. And if they actually knew where their stuff was coming from, because what you're buying is something I learned working in the industry, you're buying is machine runtime because they're building it to specification anyway. So what you're not buying their name or anything, you're just buying their machine time. So and whatever sourcing they have. So and a lot of people don't know that part. I think it started becoming like a prevalent thing when people started noticing the manufacturer marks on AR uppers and lowers and actually
Yeah,
trying
the
to track
forger's
that.
marks.
Exactly. So, but that's way more prevalent with firearm stuff because even mill contracts, right? So if we talked about the mill contracts with Colt or FN getting the contracts, well, they sublease that contract to different manufacturers for their runtime. They're just doing it under their contract and their brand. So it's actually quite common. And these rifle manufacturers that have their name on an action or the small builders or something like this is our action, like no,
It's just a marking variance.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
saw a lot of that with Defiance when they, I mean,
Yep.
I think Defiance was one of the first companies to start offering a marking variance to small shops. I think it's funny. We always see, you know, posts up on social media like, check out our new something something action that we've been collaborating and designed for X amount of years, and we're finally ready to release. And you're like, that's a ruckus, you know? Like,
Yeah, exactly. Or tenacity or
There's not
whatever.
a ruckus.
We talked about not starting shit.
Well, I mean,
I didn't
some
say
of some
shit.
of
Giant
the
That's
brands,
the
some of the brands
Where's my
will
paddle at?
outright say it. Some of the brands will outright say it, like, yeah, this is a branded action or whatever. Some of them,
Well,
try to
and
act
there's
like
nothing
theirs.
wrong with it. Yeah, having somebody build something for you, it really, I mean, we have barrels built for us that we machine. It's not a big deal. Cole and I have discussed at length, you know, like what actions we're going to carry and what we're not. And one of the biggest reasons we don't carry some of the other brands is because they don't make their own parts. It doesn't make them bad actions. What it does do is inhibits our ability to take care of our customer if something happens. If you break a firing pin, if you break an extractor, something goes wrong, you lose your bolt in your luggage in frickin', you know, Mozambique or whatever the hell you went. We want to be able to get on the phone with the manufacturer, secure some extra runtime, and get you that part quick. We don't want to have call somebody that has to call somebody else that has to call somebody else, and maybe 9 months later you get your bolt replaced.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we've had those problems. We have had those issues in the past, and there's a reason we don't carry those brands anymore. We just have to be able to take care of the customer. Things are going to come up, stuff's going to break.
We've made a big step recently as so far as to start buying just parts for the actions that we have,
Yeah,
so that we don't have to chase down. The problem is that costs a lot of money for us to try and do that. to maintain all these different types of actions. Because Impact, they've got what, 4 or 5. Luckily, a lot of them cross over to the others, but some of them don't. And so it's super hard for us to carry all this stuff in stock. Now, I've always said a lot of these actions, they feel the same. There's not a whole lot of difference. I also back actions where the people are in the industry. They're not hiding behind something. They're out there. They're supporting the industry itself. They're supporting matches. They're smart, supporting people. They're just good people. And
they're
I
also
will
fun.
buy an, I will buy an action if it's the same. If there's another one that's a little bit cheaper, I'll buy that action because I know that that person is just a solid the other person, and I want to support them. And that's one of those big things of why we've done what we've done, and we've worked with the people we want to work with because, I've had every one of the action companies pretty much that we buy direct through has called me in the last week, and they're like, dude, you going to shop? We want to meet. We want to talk to you. We want to sit down. We want to go to dinner. We want to they just care about you as a customer, and they care about our customers, which makes a big thing. Like Brian and those guys.
They're at every match. They're at every match.
And they sponsor and they take care of people. And I mean, hell, they even sponsored Matt. I can't say that because we did too. Shit. But you know what I mean? Yeah, I know. I can take it back, right? We're still doing him another barrel because that one barrel that we build him shoots around corners like in that one movie.
We're gonna send it.
That wasn't us. That wasn't us.
I can always just blame it on the barrel, right?
Yeah.
Bad barrel. It was a bad barrel, man. Why you keep sending me this cheap ass stuff? You can't send me crap and expect me to make diamonds, bro.
I said you were a miracle worker. I was testing the theory.
Not that big.
No. I said I wasn't cheap, but I was easy.
Oh, okay. Same thing.
He's not fast either. He's just cheap and easy.
That's right.
Oh boy, hell! I'm sure people are just like, "Wow, this shit show that we're going to send our stuff to." But
this is exactly how it is all the time. It's a little loose,
It's fun. We have a good time, and that's the thing is you want to have a gun builder you can call and have a conversation with, and you can ask questions for. I mean, we're on the phone nonstop all day doing stuff like this,
and it does get hard with the customer load. Like you're like, okay, you don't want to piss people off. Man, I really got to get back on this machine. You don't understand how important it is. It's tough. It is tough. Cole and I are constantly like, how do we design something or hire somebody that has our knowledge that can talk to them? And that's like going back to what you said, Cole. People in the industry that kind of hide behind the company. You would be amazed at how many of these companies are owned by people that are not involved in the industry in any way. And when I say in any way, I mean they don't even know their own products. They don't know what's being built. They don't know how it works. They don't know how to service it. They're just the money behind the operation. It really is. It really is. I mean, we were just talking before we got on here. I'm not gonna name them out, but
Nick, set your pen down.
They were so bad. It's not a pen.
It's a trigger. Even better.
Big freaking trigger.
Luckily, I don't have my bow release in my hand. I'm really bad with that thing.
Yeah, freaking A. No, but that doesn't make a bad company.
It doesn't.
If there's somebody back there, but it's who's the face of the company and who's building their stuff. But you can tell when you go to companies, you can tell how much pride they have in their work and who's out there talking about it and different things like that. And I like to say we have some of the best customers. I'm always getting messages. I'm always seeing stuff on there about, hey, these guys took care of us. We're never going to be perfect, but we always try to make it right, whether we're wrong. And I'll admit to it every time. Hey, sorry. Hey, look, every one of my Lone Peak barrels from Y'all Hammers, I enjoy running that action more than the bad actions. Hey, we'll build the shit out of those barrels and give them to you. You can screw it on and fit it and do whatever, and we'll stand behind our barrels 100%. And again, Lone Peak builds freaking solid actions. They're a Utah company. I'm from Utah. Solid stuff. I'll support the shit out of them. I have one. So, before we leave, what are some other things that we kind of want to hit on as far as building it out? I mean, this was more about us letting people know, like, quit overthinking it because there's too many great options out there, right?
So there is something I want to bring up. You spend all this money on. It's not going to go the exact direction you think it is, but just bear with me. You spend all the money on the barrel work, the action, trigger, optics, whatever. Betting matters.
Oh
It
yeah.
truly does. So I have seen the Boyd's phenomenon for years, and I'm not saying you can't get a good product, but you can't just take something like of extremely good quality and work and slap it into a non-bedded chassis or stock or whatever that doesn't match up or is not of good quality and expect it to work. So that matters 1000%.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we see people do it all the time. I refer to it. It's like putting a new transmission in your car and leaving the old clutch disc behind. It really is that big of an area because you when you're when you tighten these screws at each end of this action, and I mean, this is a beefy action. The beefier your action is, the less important it becomes. But we're not talking about beefy actions anymore. We're talking about 19 and a half ounce stainless actions.
Right.
There's not a lot of rigidity left in those. And those actions are the ones that are really going to show you where all those little flexes are. And as soon as you flex that action and you compress the scope, you compress the erector tube housing in the scope, your reticle starts floating, you're going to have a hard time.
Game
You're
over.
going to have a hard time. Yeah, it really is. I don't care how good your scope is or what your torque specs are, how many posts you put up on Facebook asking if it looks normal. It's never going to work. It's just not. And there's so many companies out there say, oh, we CNC inlet our stock so you don't have to bet them. I mean, you can just look at these two actions here. Do those look the same to you?
Nope, none of them are.
Absolutely.
They all might
None
be
of them are the same.
Remington 700 footprint, but how they get there is different, and everything has a tolerance to it. Everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Like when we talk about the Remington 700 footprint, both those actions I showed up are, and what they're really talking about when they talk about the Remington 700 footprint is the dimension from the back of the recoil lug to these holes right here. That is it. That is really all that's left of that footprint. It's not even, these aren't even really clones anymore. They've come a long way away from them. Yes, they will drop into a Remington 700 inlet and they will generally just do that's it. But fit like a glove, if you're going to spend that money and walk away from the extra $250 to $350 depending on who you're going to for betting, that's hasty. I guess I liken it to this: if you can't afford the extra $300 for your $5,000 build, you might not need a $5,000 bill.
Yeah,
that's just
true.
That's kind of the hard reality of it.
Mm-hmm. Matt's up there like, you just put it in MDT and it'll work just fine.
Well, so there's been evolutions of the chassis, right? Because because it's hard to accommodate a bedding surface, especially a CNC bedding surface, for all of these different variants. So V-block bedding works very good. That's what MDT uses now, is V-block bedding. So when you tighten it down, it rides on the V's, and then it'll get equally torqued, and it works extremely well. But there's some other manufacturers that don't take that approach, or like I said, the wood stock or laminate thing, where they just crudely do it. There's no pillars for the action to ride on or anything, and like people think that, or some of the injection molded stuff, that you can just slap an action in there and hey, it's going to work. It's gonna work well. Or they don't torque equally, and they don't see is that stress you're talking about on the front and rear, or they're binding that action and it's bowing. And I've actually seen some actions torqued in stocks that the bolt ran worse when it was in the stock. You take it out, the stress is gone. You can actually work the bolt like it should. And I've seen that, and people think and that people think like, oh, that's just how it's supposed to be. No. Bedding matters. It 100% matters.
Yeah, I agree. The first chassis, that were coming out, we first started seeing chassis 15, 16, 17 years ago. They were very different. HS Precision came out with their M24 stock, had their V-block system in it for the Remington. And actually the block wasn't that bad. It was just the Remington wasn't straight.
Yeah.
And not everything's perfectly straight. There's no such thing as absolutely perfectly straight. If we were to put this action in a vise and run a test indicator down the surface from one end to the other, there's no way it's going to be zero at both ends. there's always just a
Right.
little bit of something that happens there between fixturing, between different operations of machining, heat stress, uh, nitride coating that kind of twists things, turns them out just a little bit. Doesn't make them bad. But seriously, Matt's right. Bed those stocks, baby.
Hmm. We've had a couple questions on our Instagram live, and I'll hit them real quick. Somebody asked, TDI Ranch asked, what's your current lead time on prefits? Now, this is a deep question. Depends on what you're doing. Depends on, is it carbon? Is it not carbon? What twist rate? A lot of that. For the most part, we're 12 weeks or less on any of our prefits. We're trying to get that down by, every time I order, I try to order a few extra. Like right now, I think we've got some extra 6.5 medium Palmas in. We've got a couple 6.5 VCCs from Benchmark in. We've got some extra 7 medium Palmas. There's some stuff that we have. So if we have it, you're probably 6 weeks, 7 weeks, probably. If we don't have it, it might be a little bit longer. It just depends on the options that you're trying to choose and that stuff like that.
A lot of
As
it
far as
depends on what
machining
we're
it's
running when you order too.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I'm working on 6.5 Creedmoors and you happen to order that week, chances are your barrel's going out that week because I'm going to do as many of them as I can in a batch.
Mm-hmm.
Some of that stuff I was working on earlier this week, those orders were placed like 7 days ago.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them were 6 weeks old. It just depends on how they stack up as we run them through.
Who You Love Barbecue asks, is it worth sending an action in to have you all mounted in the chassis if it's a prefit, such as a Lone Peak and an MPA Cadex? It doesn't matter. Like, we can do it. Here's what you need to know. If you're going to do it and you're going to do it right, you've got to have a barrel holder. You've got to have the headspace gauges, because we always tell you to check everything, no matter what. And then you've got to be able to torque it to the right thing. So right there, you've got to have 3 things that you own to be able to do that. Now, if you want us to do it, you send it in, we torque it, we do everything, we send it right back out to you, and you're not paying the extra. It's actually probably cheaper for us to do it at the end of the day, unless you're going to go out there and you're going to do multiples of these. At that point, I would probably go out, buy a barrel of ice. I'd probably go, get everything that you need for it if you're going to do multiples. If this is just one time and you're not going to do it again for a few years, just send it in. We can do it. It's probably a lot easier and a lot faster, and we can check the headspace and make sure everything's timed. Somebody else asked, do you guys answer the phone when we call? And yes, it's either myself or Nick on most cases. His daughter Bella's been answering it. Jen's been answering it when we're busy. If we're on a machine or one of us is busy, one of those guys try to answer it. And then if it's a sales question, usually it comes to us. We're just trying to keep us running smoothly and let other people answer the phone. But yes, it would be one of us.
If you called today and we pretended we were a dry cleaning service, that was definitely me. Damn, that guy was confused too.
He started stumbling. He goes, "Wait, you guys clean clothes?"
Yeah. Side gig.
Everything nice around here. Somebody else asked, do y'all build off of Tika? If you want to go back, if any of you want to go back, this is on our YouTube channel too. You can watch the whole thing. And we started out talking about Tika builds. We build a lot of T3Xs and stuff like that. Usually on those, we ask you to send in the action because we just want to test everything. We want to make sure everything's fitted. The tolerance is there.
Let me touch on that real quick. Because here's the thing, Tika never came out and made a statement saying our actions are prefit capable. Our actions hold tolerance. That was the barrel companies that came up with that one all on their own. And the one thing about a Tika is if you look at, a Tika being a SIP spec action, these guys being Sammy, get in my camera here. There is a very large flanging surface here. This is on this Lone Peak action. Okay, this is that way so we can butt a 1.25 inch diameter barrel up to this action. A Tika has a landing surface on the face of their action about the thickness of a dime. And how Tikas are head spaced in the factory, okay, they actually cut them a little bit long. They continue to torque those until they crush the head space correct.
Same with
All right.
Howes. Same exact. Yep.
Right. Yeah, and here's the thing. That's why some people say, "Oh, my Tika action came right off," and other people say, "Holy crap, I had to get a pipe wrench and a come along or cut it." You know, we actually cut them. I prefer to put them in the lathe, use a parting tool, and
Yep.
break the shoulder on that barrel and pull it off that way, so I don't risk twisting that action. But that's why we don't do a pre-fit for Tikka without them being sent in. I've just seen too many of them that were different. It's not worth our reputation. It's not worth your safety, just for the convenience of not having to send it to us. But if you send it to us, we're totally willing to do it. We do a couple every week, you know, at least. So, but yeah, you got to send them in. We make it per barrel. So,
and the brass problems that could occur too of not being in that minimum maximum. So that's a lot of people don't talk about the brass issues too, especially if you want to reload on this. And if you got two, like you're undersized, then you're gonna have, you know, sizing issues. Then you're oversized, you're gonna stretch the brass, and you're gonna stress the hell out of it. And a lot of people don't like buying super expensive brass that'll tolerate that, so they end up having split cases and shit, and it doesn't work out well for anybody.
right. Yeah, so I don't think a lot of people know that though. There's such a push right now to, you know, we got Tikka prefits. These guys got Tikka prefits. Everybody's got prefits these days. And it's not like it was 8 years ago when we were the only guys doing it. Everybody does it. And I don't know, like there's a few good builders out there that are like, I don't think we're gonna do that. And I just, and if they knew how the Tikkas were put together and why they were made the way they were, I don't know that so many people would buy the prefits without sending their actions in and having them fit.
Well, a lot of people went back to the nut thing, you know, the Remage type,
Mhm.
you know, some.
I've also seen this come loose, and that's why I'm a little leery of that.
I want something I can torque on there, and she ain't coming off. That's what I want. Is there anything else as far as you know, starting? You know, don't skimp. It's only a few $100s difference. I mean, yeah, it's a few $100s, but a few $100s difference in action. Once you get that, then the rest of it you can put together as you go. But what is there anything else we haven't hit on that you guys can think of as far as actions?
That's true. That's true. Yeah,
That's
a
true.
properly made rifle doesn't use a nut. You're right.
Yeah.
There's a reason why they exist, and it's not because they're perfect.
Right. No, honestly, when we do, full disclosure, we do cut one barrel that uses a barrel nut, and that's the Sig Cross. We're actually thinking about getting rid of that. We don't know if we're going to do that yet or not, but that is the only one we've ever done. And I will say this, they're fast to make because you can be all over the place on that reamer depth. And we're talking like where we're trying to hit plus minus half a thousandths on a shouldered barrel or better. Generally, we're right around 3/10 thousandths on depth. Those barrel nut barrels, I mean, holy crap. You can do your touch off by eyeballing where the reamer sits and hitting Z face measure because it really doesn't matter. Plus minus 10, 15 thousandths.
Oh,
You're going to be good to go because everything adjusts in.
Yeah.
You know, like it's, but we still measure them here because I can't break myself of not doing it. But I honestly just feel like it's a lazy way to manufacture a barrel. It really is, especially for guys that are using CNCs and have all the proper tools to do the job better.
Work. Yeah.
I don't know why they're still doing barrel nuts. I'm not gonna pay $5,000 for a rifle that's got a barrel nut on it.
No, but we've both seen them.
Oh, we see them every day, every single day.
Whoa! $300 rifle. Okay.
Yeah. That's why that system's there for real. What you got, Cole? I think he's looking at something else.
He's thinking about how much he loves Sig Crosses.
Yeah, when he runs out of the room, he's going to be like, clear my browser history.
Yeah.
Holy hell, my freaking internet, dude. Spent so much money on it and everything keeps freezing. Driving me nuts. All
I've
right.
been having a good time without
Oh,
you. So.
good. Well, that's usually what happens. Just leave. Favorite barrel makers. Oh, hell. We're going to go TDI Ranch. You're going to make us go down a freaking rabbit hole, and we don't want to go there. We're going to hit barrels.
Three B's.
We're going to hit.
It starts with a B, you're good.
Here we go again. We'll hit barrels in another one, so make sure you're following these. We'll all in the next week or two. We'll talk about some of our favorite barrel makers, why they're our favorite barrel makers, and some of that good stuff. We've had some issues with some other barrel makers, and we'll reach through and punch in the throat, but it is what it is. You know,
well, guys,
Don't
I have a
control.
beautiful woman sitting next to me trying to get me to go to a Christmas party.
Oh,
You should do that.
It's
yeah,
awesome being with you guys.
it's
Matt,
perfect.
good getting a chance to talk to you, sir.
Yeah, you too, Nick. I know I'll talk to you soon. I'll send you
All
more
right.
weird. I'll send you more weird projects.
There you go. There
Yeah,
you go.
Merry Christmas, everybody. And
Merry
of
Christmas.
course, if you want some from Straight Jacket, give us a call, send us an email, sales@straightjacketarmory.com. We'll get you squared away. Have a great weekend, everybody.
See you guys.